The exchange of control happened amid growing indications the Kremlin was using talk of de-escalation in Ukraine as cover to regroup, resupply its forces, and redeploy them for a stepped-up offensive in the eastern part of the country. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Russian withdrawals from the north and center of the country were just a military tactic to build up forces for new, powerful attacks in the southeast. A new round of talks between the countries was scheduled for Friday, Kyiv time, 5 weeks into a conflict that has left thousands and driven 4 million Ukrainians from the country. "We know their intentions," Zelensky said in his nightly video address to the nation. "We know that they are moving away from those areas where we hit them in order to focus on other, very important ones where it may be difficult for us. There will be battles ahead," he added. Meanwhile, in Mariupol, Russian forces blocked a convoy of 45 buses attempting to evacuate people, despite the Russian military agreeing to a limited ceasefire in the area. Only 631 people could get out of the city in private cars, according to the Ukrainian government. Russian forces also seized about 14 tons of food and medical supplies in a dozen buses that were trying to make it to Mariupol, Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk said. The city has been the scene of some of the worst suffering of the war. Tens of thousands have managed to get out in the past few weeks via humanitarian corridors, reducing the population from a pre-war 430,000 to an estimated 100,000 by last week. But other relief efforts have been thwarted by continued Russian attacks. Destroyed Russian armored vehicles sit on the outskirts of Kyiv. AP, the International Atomic Energy Agency, said it had been informed by Ukraine that the Russian forces, at the site of the world's worst nuclear disaster, had transferred control of it in writing to the Ukrainians. The last Russian troops left early on Friday, the Ukrainian government agency responsible for the exclusion zone said. Energoatom gave no details on the condition of the soldiers it said were exposed to radiation, and did not say how many were affected. There was no immediate comment from the Kremlin, and the IAEA said it had not been able to confirm the reports of Russian troops receiving high doses. It said it was seeking more information. Russian forces seized the Chernobyl site in the opening stages of February 24th invasion, raising fears that they would cause damage or disruption that could spread radiation. The workforce at the site oversees the safe storage of spent fuel rods and the concrete entombed ruins of the reactor that exploded in 1986. Edwin Lyman, a nuclear expert with the US-based Union of Concerned Scientists, said it seems unlikely numerous troops would develop severe radiation illness. But it was impossible to know for sure without more details. This satellite image shows a close view of Chernobyl nuclear facilities in Ukraine on March 10th. Maxa Technologies, he said contaminated material was probably buried or covered with new topsoil during the cleanup of Chernobyl, and some soldiers may have been exposed to a hotspot of radiation while digging. Others may have assumed they were at risk too, he said. Early this week, the Russians said they would significantly scale back military operations in areas around Kyiv and the northern city of Chernobyl to increase trust between the two sides and help negotiations along. But in the Kyiv suburbs, Regional Governor Alexander Palviak said on social media on Thursday that Russian forces shelled Irpin and Makariv, and there were battles around Hostomel. Ukrainian forces counterattacked and some Russian withdrawals around the suburb of Brovary to the east, Pavliak said. Ukrainian soldiers carry a body of a civilian by the Russian forces over the destroyed bridge in Irpin close to Kyiv. AP, at a Ukrainian military checkpoint outside Kyiv, soldiers and officers said they didn't believe Russian forces had given up on the capital. What does it mean, significantly scaling down combat actions in the Kyiv and Chernihiv areas? Asked Brigadier General Valery Embakov. Does it mean there will be 100 missiles instead of 200 missiles launched on Kyiv, or something else? Chernihiv came under attack as well. At least one person was and 4 were wounded in the Russian shelling of a humanitarian convoy of buses sent to evacuate residents cut off from food, water and other supplies, said Ukrainian Human Rights Commissioner Lyudmila Denisova. Elsewhere, Ukraine reported Russian artillery barrages in and around the northeastern city of Kyiv. Ukraine's emergency services also said the toll had risen to 20 in a Russian missile strike Tuesday on a government administration building in the southern city of Mykolaiv. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said intelligence indicated Russia was not scaling back its military operations in Ukraine, but was instead trying to regroup, resupply its forces, and reinforce its offensive in the Donbas. Russia has repeatedly lied about its intentions, Stoltenberg said. At the same time, he said, pressure was being kept up on Kyiv and other cities, and we can expect additional offensive actions bringing even more suffering. The Donbas is the predominantly Russian-speaking industrial region where Moscow-backed separatists have been battling Ukrainian forces since 2014. In the past few days, the Kremlin, in a seeming shift in its war aims, said that its main goal now was gaining control of the Donbas, which consists of the Donetsk and Luhansk regions, including Mariupol. Loading the top rebel leader in Donetsk, Denis Pushilin, issued an order to set up a rival city government for Mariupol, according to Russian state news agencies, in a sign of Russian intent to hold and administer the city. With talks set to resume between Ukraine and Russia via video, there seemed little faith that the two sides would resolve the conflict soon. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that conditions weren't yet ripe for a ceasefire, and that he wasn't ready for a meeting with Zelensky until negotiators do more work. Italian Premier Mario Draghi said after a telephone conversation with the Russian leader. As Western officials search for clues about what Russia's next move might be, a top British intelligence official said demoralized Russian soldiers in Ukraine are refusing to carry out orders and sabotaging their equipment, and had accidentally shot down their own aircraft. Loading US intelligence officials have concluded that Putin is being misinformed by his advisors about how badly the war is going because they are afraid to tell him the truth. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that the US is wrong and that neither the State Department nor the Pentagon possesses the real information about what is happening in the Kremlin.